Imagine a world still catching its breath. A world scarred by the deadliest conflict humanity had ever known, where the echoes of gunfire were only just beginning to fade, replaced by the cautious hum of reconstruction. For America, the Second World War had ended, but its shadow, vast and imposing, still stretched across the nation, touching lives, shaping futures, and quietly redefining what was possible. It was a time of immense relief, yes, but also of a lingering unease, a sense that the world, having been torn apart, might still harbor secrets darker than anyone could comprehend. On a warm, deceptively ordinary afternoon in December 1945, at the Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station in Florida, that unease was almost palpable, thick in the humid air. The sky above was a canvas of endless cerulean blue, a stark contrast to the ominous drama that was about to unfold. Across the shimmering concrete of the runway, 5 colossal Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bombers stood silent, their metallic bodies gleaming under the relentless sun. These were not mere machines. They were titans forged in the crucible of war, each one a testament to American industrial might and the sheer, unyielding will to victory. Their triple-bladed propellers, once a blur of devastating power that sent German U-boats shuddering beneath the waves, now rested motionless, like dormant beasts. Yet even in their stillness, they radiated a formidable aura, carrying the ghosts of battles fought and won, or perhaps the prescient whispers of a fate yet to be sealed. Their existence was a paradox, instruments of destruction designed to protect, now awaiting a mission that promised nothing more than routine. At precisely 2:10 p.m., the ground began to tremble, a low mechanical heartbeat echoing across the sprawling base. One by one, the mighty engines growled to life, a symphony of raw power that vibrated through the very bones of the concrete. Dark smoke, thick and oily, coiled upwards like spirits rising from steel, momentarily smudging the pristine sky. The signal flashed from the control tower, an unremarkable green light that marked the beginning of countless flights before it and countless more after. But this flight, this formation of 5 Avengers, would carve its name into history, not for what it achieved, but for what it became, a chilling enigma. A legend whispered in hushed tones, a mystery that would defy all logic and remain, to this day, agonizingly unsolved. One after another, they charged down the runway, their immense weight defying gravity with each accelerating roar. Then, with a collective surge, they soared into the open sky, swallowed by sunlight and cloud, merging with the vastness above. Their mission was designated Flight 19, a simple training exercise. Follow a designated route, drop dummy bombs into the turquoise expanse of the Atlantic, and return home before the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Floridian sky in hues of fire. But history, as it often does, had other plans. This was not to be just another training run. This was the day a routine flight would vanish into legend, taking with it 14 skilled airmen, veterans hardened by the crucible of global conflict, men who had stared death in the eye and lived to tell the tale. They were disciplined, fearless, precise, yet unknowingly, they were flying toward oblivion, toward a place where the familiar rules of navigation, the very fabric of reality, seemed to unravel. Aboard the lead Avenger, call sign FT-28, sat Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, a seasoned pilot, confident and capable. He led the formation, his younger, less experienced crew looking to him for guidance. Beside him were 4 other Avengers, FT-3, FT-11, FT-81, and FT-87, each carrying a similar complement of 2 or 3 airmen. In total, 14 souls entrusted to the skies that afternoon. For them, this was nothing extraordinary, just another day in the wild blue yonder, a mundane exercise in a post-war world. They were pilots, gunners, radio operators, mechanics, a finely tuned team, accustomed to the precision and danger of naval aviation. They had navigated treacherous skies over enemy territory, faced anti-aircraft fire, and survived encounters that would haunt lesser men. A simple training run, they thought. A stroll in the park compared to the horrors they had witnessed. The weather was perfect, almost unnervingly so, deceptively serene. The Atlantic Ocean below stretched endlessly, calm as glass, reflecting the afternoon sun like a giant glittering mirror. The wind was a gentle caress, barely disturbing the surface of the water. The skies were an unbroken, vibrant blue, dotted with only a few wispy clouds that seemed more decorative than ominous. Inside the cockpits, the initial banter over the radio was relaxed, casual, the voices steady and confident. Nothing seemed out of place. No hint of the unfathomable horror that lay ahead. No whisper of the monstrous silence that would soon engulf them. But fate, it seems, prefers silence before it strikes. And for Flight 19, the silence was about to be broken by a terrifying symphony of confusion and dread. Who could have known that these 14 men, veterans of a war that had reshaped the globe, were unknowingly flying toward an encounter with something far more ancient, far more inexplicable than any enemy they had ever faced? Who could have guessed that within a few short hours, their 5 powerful aircraft and everyone aboard would vanish as if swallowed by the sky itself, leaving behind not a single trace, not a single fragment of wreckage, only an enduring, chilling mystery. This was not just another training flight. This was the genesis of one of the most haunting enigmas in human history. This was the birth of the legend of the Bermuda Triangle.
The mission began as planned. The formation executed its maneuvers flawlessly, cutting through the clear skies above the shimmering Atlantic. Their route was a straightforward triangular navigation exercise. They were to fly east for 56 miles, then turn north for 67 miles, drop their practice bombs, and finally head southwest back to base. Simple, routine, the kind of flight they could do in their sleep. For over an hour, everything progressed without incident. The rhythmic drone of the engines provided a comforting backdrop to the vast, empty expanse of sea and sky. The pilots maintained their positions, the radio chatter remaining light and professional. But then something changed. It wasn't a sudden explosion, no violent storm, no immediate catastrophe. It was far more insidious, far more unsettling. At approximately 3:30 p.m., a crackle of static, sharp and intrusive, broke through the previously calm radio silence. It was a voice, strained and uncertain, cutting through the usual hum of communication. It was Lieutenant Taylor. Taylor, over radio, strained. "This is an emergency. We're not sure where we are. Everything looks strange. The ocean doesn't look like the ocean." Back at the control tower, the men monitoring the flight froze. A ripple of confusion spread through the operations room. The ocean doesn't look like the ocean? What could that possibly mean? The weather was clear, visibility perfect. This made no sense. Taylor was an experienced pilot, not prone to hyperbole or panic. The radio went silent for a moment. Then Taylor's voice returned, tighter this time, edged with a growing note of genuine confusion and perhaps the first flicker of fear. "Taylor, over radio, increasingly agitated. Our compasses aren't working. Both of them are out. We can't tell which way is west. Everything is wrong. Even the sky looked strange." The words hung in the air, heavy with a new terrifying implication. Compasses failing? Both of them? In clear weather? This was not a minor navigational error. This was a profound, fundamental breakdown of their most basic instruments. Static began to swallow his words, then release them in broken, fading fragments. The control tower, staffed by experienced personnel, immediately sprang into action, trying to guide them, to reorient them. But the more they instructed, the more lost Flight 19 seemed to become. "What is your position?" they asked repeatedly. "Confirm your heading. Head west, Lieutenant Taylor, due west." But Taylor's responses became increasingly disoriented. The squadron believed they were flying over the Florida Keys, a familiar landmark. In truth, unbeknownst to them, they were hundreds of miles off course, drifting over the vast alien waters of the Great Bahama Bank, a labyrinthine expanse of shallow reefs and deep ocean trenches that stretched out into the truly open Atlantic. The familiar coastline of Florida was long gone, replaced by a bewildering seascape that offered no discernible landmarks. Inside the cockpits, the pilots argued softly, their voices tinged with frustration and a growing sense of dread. Their navigational instruments, usually models of precision, were spinning wildly, dials twitching like something alive, possessed by an unseen force. It was as if some colossal, invisible magnetic anomaly had taken control, wrenching their sense of direction, distorting their reality. Later, the meticulously kept radio logs would reveal snippets of conversations that painted an increasingly harrowing picture. Taylor, his voice low and uncertain, was heard saying, "The sky doesn't look normal. It feels different, almost unnatural." These words relayed back to the base sent a chill through the operations room. For the first time, even the hardened officers on the ground, far removed from the immediate danger, began to feel it. That uneasy, crawling sense that something was very, very wrong. This wasn't just a lost flight. This was something else entirely. As the minutes bled into hours, the relentless afternoon sun began its slow descent over the Atlantic. The clear blue sky, which had seemed so benign just hours before, began to darken, bruised by rolling clouds that seemed to appear from nowhere, gathering with an unnerving swiftness. The wind, which had been a gentle whisper, picked up, whistling ominously through the radio static. Somewhere out there, 5 powerful bombers, once symbols of victory, now vulnerable and lost, fought against a growing unseen storm, battling not just the elements, but a profound, terrifying disorientation. The control tower kept transmitting, calling, guiding, pleading. "Flight 19, come in, head west, you are over Florida, head west, Lieutenant Taylor." But Flight 19 drifted farther and farther away, their replies fading into shards of noise, increasingly desperate, increasingly fragmented. Pilot over radio, faint, panicked. "Can't see land, everything looks wrong, nothing makes sense." Then came silence, not the static-laden silence of a weak signal, but a profound, absolute void, brief, fragile, terrifying. It stretched for what felt like an eternity, a gaping maw of nothingness. A few minutes later, the radios crackled again, piercing the horrifying quiet. This time, the voices were broken, trembling, utterly lost in a sea of interference. Lieutenant Taylor's voice, now barely recognizable, was heard saying something about a white water. Lightning flashed across the horizon, not the distant flicker of a summer storm, but a brilliant, searing burst that illuminated the ocean below for a fleeting moment, turning it a ghostly, phosphorescent white. It was an image of primal chaos. Pilot over radio, barely audible, filled with terror. "It's closing in on us. The sky. It's not right." And then nothing. No mayday. No final coordinates, no desperate plea for help, just a faint hum that dissolved into utter, complete static. The sea and sky, now indistinguishable in the deepening twilight and the encroaching storm, became one endless, devouring darkness, swallowing the squadron whole. When the storm eventually cleared, leaving behind a deceptively tranquil sea, there were no planes, no wreckage, no oil slick, no parachutes, no trace of 14 men who had simply flown into the clouds and never returned. Flight 19 had vanished, utterly, completely, without a whisper.
The world held its breath. Minutes after Flight 19's last faint transmission, as the terrifying implications began to sink in, the U.S. Navy launched a massive rescue mission. At 7:30 p.m., a colossal Martin PBM Mariner hydroplane, call sign Training 49, lifted off from the Florida base. Its immense size and enormous fuel tanks had earned it the apt, if tragically ironic, nickname, the Flying Gas Tank. On board with 13 brave crewmen, their faces grim, their mission seemingly impossible: find Flight 19 and bring them home. As the Mariner climbed into the rapidly darkening night sky, hopeful eyes along the coast followed its ascent. Perhaps now there would be answers. Perhaps now the lost would be found. But fate, it seemed, had other, crueler plans. Only 20 minutes later, at approximately 7:50 p.m., observers along the coast, straining their eyes against the gathering gloom, witnessed a horrifying spectacle. A brilliant, explosive flash of light streaked through the clouds. It was not a distant star, nor a meteor, nor a flash of lightning. For a terrifying heartbeat, it looked as if the entire sky had ignited. A fiery ball plunged toward the dark, churning waters below, disappearing beneath the waves with a muffled roar that somehow carried across the miles. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't lightning. It was the rescue plane. When search teams already deployed for Flight 19 redirected their efforts to the coordinates of the explosion, they found absolutely nothing. No debris, no smoke plumes staining the night sky, no oil slick on the water's surface, not a single piece of wreckage, not a life raft, not a sign of life. The Martin Mariner and its 13 crewmen had vanished just as mysteriously, just as completely as Flight 19. In a single horrifying night, 27 men, 6 state-of-the-art aircraft, and a combined total of over 40 years of flight experience simply disappeared into the unknown. What began as a baffling navigational mystery had escalated into something far more profound, far more terrifying. It had become a legend of the deep, a riddle that defied all reason, all logic, and all conventional explanation. The disappearance of Flight 19 and the Martin Mariner sent shockwaves around the world, ripping through the fragile post-war calm. Newspapers screamed headlines of vanished planes and missing men. The story spread like wildfire, fueling a nascent fascination with the enigmatic stretch of ocean now being dubbed the Bermuda Triangle. Yet no one, not the U.S. Navy, not the most seasoned investigators, not the most brilliant scientists, could explain what had truly happened. Naval officers, frustrated and bewildered, pored over maps of the Bermuda Triangle, trying to trace what went wrong, attempting to piece together a coherent narrative from the disjointed radio transmissions and the horrifying silence that followed. Every theory proposed seemed stranger than the last, pushing the boundaries of scientific understanding and venturing into the realm of the truly inexplicable. Some whispered of alien bases hidden beneath the ocean, a powerful, unseen force pulling ships and planes into another realm, perhaps another dimension. Others suggested remnants of Atlantis, and ancient, advanced civilization beneath the waves, its energy still alive and dangerously active, interfering with modern technology. These theories, dismissed by many as mere fantasy, nevertheless resonated with a public grappling with the unfathomable. Scientists, struggling to offer more earthly explanations, proposed methane gas eruptions from the seabed, sudden and violent enough to cause ships to sink instantly and planes to lose lift. They spoke of rogue waves, monstrous walls of water that could appear out of nowhere, or sudden, localized superstorms, microbursts of unparalleled ferocity. They even considered magnetic anomalies, strong enough to disrupt compasses and navigation systems. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could fully account for the eerie precision with which Flight 19 had vanished. No debris, no distress calls that made sense, no trace of the men. And certainly, no conventional explanation could account for the equally instantaneous and complete disappearance of the rescue plane. It was as if time and space itself had bent, fractured, or simply dissolved, swallowing men and machines whole, leaving behind a void, a question mark etched into the very fabric of the ocean. Decades of relentless research, countless expeditions, and untold hours of investigation yielded nothing. Flight 19 and the Martin Mariner remain lost, silent in the deep, their fate unknown. Their absence, a chilling reminder that the Bermuda Triangle is not merely a place on a map, a vaguely defined region of the Atlantic Ocean. It is a riddle that defies understanding, a zone where reality seems fragile, where every compass, every clock, every human expectation, and every law of physics can inexplicably fail. Every pilot who flies near its invisible boundaries, every sailor who ventures into its depths, every researcher who studies its chilling history, whispers the same haunting truth. It's a cursed triangle. It's a place where the veil between the known and the unknown seems terrifyingly thin. Even today, the mystery endures, unresolved, thrilling, and deeply, profoundly unnerving. 5 aircraft, 14 men, 1 rescue plane, 13 men, a total of 27 souls lost, and a question that has never been answered, a void that has never been filled. Was it a series of catastrophic navigational mistakes compounded by an unprecedented storm, a freak confluence of natural phenomena, or something far, far beyond human comprehension? An encounter with forces that operate on a different plane of existence. Perhaps the truth lies hidden beneath the endless, restless waves, preserved in the crushing darkness of the abyss, waiting for no one, revealed to nothing but the silent currents of time.
The story of Flight 19 is more than just a tale of disappearance. It is a meditation on our understanding of the world, a stark reminder of humanity's persistent vulnerability in the face of the unknown. It challenges our reliance on technology, our scientific certainties, and perhaps even our most deeply held beliefs about the nature of reality itself. And as the decades turn into nearly a century, the legend only deepens, weaving itself into the very fabric of maritime lore, a whispered warning carried on the wind across the vast, enigmatic expanse of the Bermuda Triangle.